So this is another example of something I'm working on to help deal with large Rhino models. My last example I showed a model kind of like this one where you can see all the metadata that's being stored on these objects. And, this has a lot of usefulness. And you can do things like you can select objects by a given key and value match. So in this case, I can select everything that's on the right, or, I can come over here and I can select everything that is a mullion, for example. Um, but it's still pretty cumbersome to use. So something they've added in Rhino 8 is the ability to add tags. So you can see here, you can actually take any piece of information, in this case these objects, and you can apply a tag to them. So what I've done is I've kind of extracted some of the information that used to be a key value pair, like the edge and the type and things like that, and I've applied them as a tag. Now, what's unfortunate is that Rhino, if you're looking right in Rhino, um, there's no way to interact with those tags. So that's what I've been working on. So now I've got this kind of tag interface, so you can see all of the tags that I've applied and how many objects there are. So for example, I can look at now I can select by these tags. So I can select by left and right, or I can select what's a mullion, or what's an adapter, for example. And I can do all of that right here. I can also, I think this is maybe the most important part, change the visibility of these things. So I can also just kind of toggle the things that I want to see here using these attributes. Now you can do that a couple ways. So I could look at the bottom and I could look at everything that's a transom. So in this case, it's going to match all of those tags, but I could also make it where it only matches those exact tags. So if I change what's a transom and what's not here, then it'll filter accordingly. This is really useful in and of itself. So now you can get pretty precise down into these pieces. But what I think is interesting is that this is pretty applicable, I think, in a different context, which is more of like an architectural model. So this is probably familiar to a lot of people, where you're dealing with different design options, and what ends up happening is you start with one and then you duplicate a bunch of layers, and it becomes really tedious to try to manage what you can see in the viewport for all the different options. Plus, sometimes you end up copying objects to other layers and stuff like that. So I think this tagging feature can really help with that. So for example, I can pick all the objects here under this option 1, and I can come in here and I can say option 1, and I can apply that tag to all those objects. And now I'm going to turn this on and off. Actually, let me hide these other options here. Now this option toggles on and off. So if I do that again here, I can take all these guys. And now it's really obvious when I'm toggling the different options, which ones are there. So I'm going to clean these up really quick. I'm going to kind of fast forward through this. Now this is interesting. I thought I would pause here really quick because I'm basically trying to consolidate all these layers into a single smaller set, so I can just toggle the options there. But I thought I would bring this up because there's a new way of interacting with block definitions in Rhino 8, which is really useful. So for example, I can't delete this layer because it's saying that this definition has some information that's on that layer. So let's look at that really quick. So 00 structure 04. So if we just look here at the block definitions, so here's the one that we're talking about, and you can actually see here, you can click on the items within that block and it'll tell you what layer they're on, which is a really great feature, because now I can come in here and I can change this from that one without having to like go into the block editor. I can very quickly reassign these objects within that block to a new layer. And now that I've done that within the layer that I'm trying to consolidate to, I can actually come back and I can delete this layer now, and it doesn't complain. Okay, so I've cleaned this up now. You can see I don't have to manage all the different options in my layers anymore. I've kind of consolidated them into a single list. Then there's all of these items down here, which I'm calling fix. And I'm going to go ahead and make sure that all of those things are labeled as such. So, here it's showing only 180 items are fixed, which is clearly something is off there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick all these objects. I'm going to apply the fixed label. And now you can see I've got all kind of 2,200 objects. Now I'm doing this through the global kind of tags interface. I could also go into the object properties here, and you can see it knows which tags these objects have and what the total kind of all of the different tags in the model are. And I could click on this plus here to apply them and so on and so forth. But you can see here, so now I can turn things on and off based on what's fixed or what belongs specifically to a single option. Now, one thing you can see here is that this option already has a kind of roof scheme, and these options don't, and that's probably because there's a roof which belongs to those two options. So we can look at this guy. So now these roof items here, really they belong to two options. So I can come in here and I can say option 1 and apply option 2 as well. And now we can see it's got all three of those tags. Well, it's not fixed anymore, right? So we can delete that tag there, and now these items belong only on those tags. So if I take that off now, what's nice about this is now I can have it in option 2 or 3, but I only have one instance of those objects, so I don't have to duplicate them across different layers. I can use the tags to control their visibility. You can also select with these different tags as well. The other thing that's kind of nice about this is you could imagine doing things for different renderings. So for example, here if I go to, I'm going to make everything visible first, and then I'm going to say select visible. I'm going to pick all of them, and then I'll call this scene 1. So I apply scene 1. Now let's say I have another scene that's more of an interior, and it's looking out this way. I'm going to go ahead and save this as scene 2. I'm going to select visible, come over here, and I'll apply scene 2. Okay, so now that I've labeled these things scene 1 and scene 2, you can kind of toggle the amount of information in your scene when you're setting up renderings and so on and so forth. So I actually ran into a little bit of a glitch there, so I had to go back a couple steps. But this is more or less where we left off. These numbers might just look a little different. But this is a bit of a tricky situation because you can see we have the stuff that's fixed, so it doesn't really belong to a specific option. And then we have the stuff in option 2, and we have the stuff in scene 1. So let's say we only want to look at the stuff that's in scene 1. Well, right now we have it on match any tags, which means it's stuff that's fixed, or it's stuff that's in option 2, and it's stuff that's in scene 1. Now, scene 1 can have things that are in option 1, 2, or 3, and because they all have this tag, they're all showing at the moment. So I could say, oh, I only want to match the stuff that hits these tags exactly. So if I do that, but now I see nothing because there's nothing that's in the fixed category and the option 2 category and the scene 1 category. So there's kind of a weird combination of and ors that need to happen here, and I haven't really figured out the right interface for setting that up. So if anybody has any thoughts, I'm definitely open to hearing them. It could be that there's, for example, separate boxes, and you can filter out like include and exclude in different boxes, something like that. But that's something I'll be working on in future steps. Like I mentioned, there's still some bugs here, so it's not quite ready for public consumption, but I'll definitely be posting about this as I figure it out and as I'm ready for some beta testers. So definitely interested to hear if you think this is useful or any feedback on how you think the UI could be better or features that you'd want to see. It'd be great to get that feedback. So appreciate it. Thanks for watching.